welcome back. One of the big questions in any probate situation is, how do I prepare a property to be sold? What do I need to do? What notices need to be made? Do I need to have my attorney involved? Do I have to have approval? And then there's some other interesting things like, what if there's somebody in there that shouldn't be in there? Right?
So once you become responsible for a property and you have your letters of administration, now you need to secure the property.
Absolutely.
That's the parts of the responsibility, and that could be changing the locks, or some of the time there's people actually living in the property, so you are not able to change the locks. And that could be a family member, it could be a tenant. And there's situations where you have to address how you're going to get the property ready to be sold, and that doesn't include someone who's living in the property.
It's one thing when it's a family member or someone, but when there's somebody that is renting, they have certain rights, and you have to follow a process. Just because someone passed away, you don't get to go like, hit the road, Jack. I mean, you have to follow that. And so again, that may be something, if you have not managed property, or be aware. Again, the people involved, the attorneys and all, can guide you through the proper steps of whether you're selling it with a person in it and that lease, or whether they just a way to motivate them to move out early, or how that looks. But it is a complication that you have to deal with. Like every part of this, there's a legal process that has to be followed. And then sometimes you have people in there that you're not expecting that don't have a legal right, right?
We just had a situation where the administrator came to the property to just look at it, secure it, and came back a couple of months later to begin the process after she had received her letters of administration to put it on the market. And lo and behold, there were people in there. So imagine surprise.
Right.
Then it was like, okay, how did they get in there and how do we get them out?
Right.
So, and you mentioned about the legalities of it, and it's so important to know what the legalities are for the state that the property's in, because you may be in Ohio and the property is in Florida or California or Arizona, and the rules are different for getting a person out in those states. And that's why the team is so important. And so then, going through that whole process involved getting in touch with the district attorney's office and going through the sheriff's department and getting eviction attorneys involved. And so really big surprises of ahas of, I have no clue on what to do about this, came up for Kathy as the administrator. Was just terrified. And just, it's back to having those team players in place to say, oh, okay, that's the situation. Then we can bring in this and this, and then here's all the tools that are available. Here's the guns to bring in, and then move on. And
all of a sudden you have an eviction attorney as part of your team.
Exactly. And how critical that is. And then there's another situation where Teresa and Rick just thought, since they were assigned as the executors of a will, but there was no trust involved, that they could just move in and take over the house. But there was a beneficiary of the decedent in the house who went, oh no, this was going to me. So it gets complicated.
It can
and
get
can
complicated.
You imagine the elevation of overwhelm and complication of this nature? And that, it all comes back down to, you're not alone.
Right.
But there are so many complexities, even in many states. If there's someone, say an older family member has someone living with them, may have been taking care of them, right? May not have been married, but if they get mail there's certain rights that start getting implied. And again, these are all the things that obviously are real estate related that we run into often, but they are often surprises for people that have the responsibility of personal property.
And the important thing is having the right team.
Choosing,
it really does come back to that, because you don't know what you're going to run into. We just ran into one. Once they did the lien search, it had transferred title. The owner, the person that had died, her heir also died. And lo and behold, neither one of them had done anything. It hadn't gone through probate, but somebody else owned the house, and it was fraud. I mean, it does happen. The one of the heirs, or multiple heirs, one of them was out of state and was assigned as the personal representative, but it took a year to unravel that, which kind of leads to the importance of doing all the things up front as soon as possible. Securing the property is so important, and that's usually the largest asset, and that's why it's so important.
And you secure it, but then you have to maintain it,
Right.
because this process takes time. So, for instance, in many cities, there's code violations. If the lawn starts getting overwhelmed, or you're in a neighborhood, I was in a de-restricted neighborhood where, the fence was older and fell, but the city has a violation. So somebody has to fix that fence within a timely manner. But those kind of things, as you go to sell or you're going through the process again, we've documented a lot of the people we've seen you need through the probate prep team book we wrote. But those are the things that, again, are not top of mind. They're ancillary to real estate.
Very true.
But again, HOA, code violations, trespassing, security, they're your responsibility. And oftentimes, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that, again, we talked about the theme of all of these videos is let us help you shortcut the education process, right? I mean,
so that you know ahead of time.
Right.
So going back to HOA and maintenance things, those are all equity eaters.
Yes.
They erode the equity. It's
So true.
penalty, it's interest, it's fee, it's, legal fees that you might not know about. And they can be very costly.
Huge.
And they have a huge standing. They
Oh,
can also
You're gonna pay 'em.
foreclose. I mean, they have the power.
Foreclose.
And on top of all of this, much of the time, the personal representative doesn't live in the same
Right.
city
Right.
or
So true.
state as the home.
Yes.
And so that can cause a lot of distress when you don't have a trusted team to help keep you informed of what's happening, to take care of the fence needs rebuilt.
Right.
We have the probate prep team, so we can get your permission to do the work
Right.
and get it done so that you don't get all those extra fees and the
Right.
stress of the letters coming saying, you're out of
Compliance.
Compliance.
Right? There's rules with them as well. And if
Right.
you don't comply, there's fines and fees and liens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll put a
And they
lien
just-
and you will pay it one way or another. It will
Right.
come out of the proceeds.
And how much easier will it be to have someone in the area helping you to take care of those things so you avoid all that extra
Right.
stress?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that need to be solved. And again, we've done thousands of these, and you end up being really good at problem solving. However, what we prefer to do is become problem avoiders. And that's one of the reasons for this series of videos, is to help think about the things that can be avoided. Had I known, I would have made a different decision. I might have contacted somebody earlier and avoided that situation for the entire estate, for everybody who's involved.
And I think one of the common denominators that we've all chosen how we practice is we know that this isn't cookie cutter. I mean, we just had this whole conversation of all the different things we've all experienced. And so working with a team and people that can meet you where you are and work the way you need. I mean, I have some people that they're not comfortable electronically signing. So they say, come explain this to me in person.
Right.
And other people, want different things. And so
There's always an answer, a solution.
yeah, but it's also realizing that there's not just one answer
That's
or
right.
one
That's
solution,
right.
And so sometimes there's people who want you to fit their mold, and other
That's right.
times it's how can I help you through this process? How can I guide you? So it goes back to my hurricane, right? That in the hassle is often the emotion. And if somebody just says, would it be helpful if I read this to you? Would it be helpful if I drop this off? Would it be, and you're like, versus get that, fill it out, print it out, deliver it to me. And so there is an awareness that we said it early, choose wisely and choose team that fits who you are and how
That's
you
right.
work, right?
That's right.
Some people have a different perspective, but that's been where people have said they appreciate our ability to meet them where they are and help them connect with other people that serve that way.
Exactly.
Meaning people still have a lot of questions and probably a lot of fear
Yes.
around real estate in particular. Like, do all the heirs have to agree to sell the property?
Right.
Do they?
Well, the answer would be basically yes. And in a case where someone does object once they receive the notice of proposed action or NOPA, If someone does object, then it has to go to court and get
Right.
confirmed by
Yeah.
the probate judge.
Yes.
It's helpful to know is there is a process.
Yes.
There is a process to deal with that. It does go to the court. It's called a partition, and the courts will say the property will be sold. It's kind of like a divorce,
Mhm.
where if they
Right.
can't agree, then the
Then the
courts
court
step in and
steps
say, okay, this is how it's going to be handled.
Mhm.
And even then, there's still the respectful way to deal with all of the parties involved, whether they're getting along or
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
And that goes back to selecting the right people with not only the right knowledge and experience, but maybe also the right heart.
Mhm.
Right. Because
Very true.
again, in the whole process, there's more than just putting a sign in the ground and
Mhm.
showing up on the day it sells.
Mhm.
And we've talked some about it, but whether it's getting property out, getting repairs done, getting insurance, ability to get insured, all these things that come into the process. Selling real estate already is one of the most emotional processes people go through.
Mhm.
And then you add everything with an estate, it just
Agreed.
elevates that whole process of what's going on.
And they need to have an experienced, skilled person to actually truly guide and lead them and protect them through the entire
Right.
process.
Absolutely. So there's many facets to any real estate transaction. However, when you are disposing of a home in an estate, you are going to find that there are some extra challenges that may come up. Many involve the legalities outside of what the typical real estate agent may have experience with to even be able to guide you. And so again, it's one more example that hopefully hearing about some of these other situations brings awareness that as they come, don't be surprised. It's not the first time we've all done it. And so having someone that understands that process
Right.
can get you with the right people at the right time to make it as smooth and protected and the best possible outcome for the estate.
We're not saying that you should choose us. We don't know where you are. We're just sharing our experience.
Mhm.
Choose somebody that is specialized, just like choosing a probate attorney. Choose a real estate agent that does have the right skill set and experience. And if you're not sure who that is, ask questions or contact one of us. We'll be happy to get you in touch with somebody in your area to help you with that
What you
large
need.
asset.
Mhm.
Mhm.